Hello my friends, this video is all about the original Xbox in 2019. Some problems you might come up against. I've recently just set mine up and I've kind of done a little bit of research online and looked out for some things that may potentially go wrong with the console. So if you're in the same boat as I am and you haven't played your Xbox for a really long time, then this is just a few tips that I've run into as a way of preserving the Xbox and making sure it doesn't break or anything like that. I haven't really properly played my Xbox, and it's been in my attic since about 2010 whenever the Battlefield server shut down. And to be honest, I was a little bit worried about turning it back on and whether or not it would still work or whether the hard drive had failed. I mean, that was nearly 10 years ago, so I didn't know if I would have all of my original saves or if anything could have went wrong inside the machine or anything like that. And I did a small bit of research to see just if I could, before I even turned the thing on, if I could somehow back up my saves or do something to preserve the Xbox, because I didn't want to. I'm going to start to play it for a few speedrun videos, and I don't want to like get into it and get playing it for hours on end. It's just my screensaver just came on, so I don't want to get playing it for hours and hours and then the thing overheat and then break. So I did a little bit of research, and what I found very quickly was everyone talks about the clock capacitor. Capacitors is something I've had a problem with before when I was trying to get an Amiga to work. I didn't really play the Amiga, but anytime I picked up an Amiga cheap that was maybe sitting around for a long time, I always found the capacitors in them leaked. And what happens is there's acid inside those capacitors, and if they leak over your motherboard, it's just bad news basically for your system. And that seems to be the case with Amiga. There's very few Amigas that still work. In fact, the Commodore 64 is much older than the Amiga, but I find you can get working versions of it a lot. There are a lot more of them, and I think that's because there wasn't any capacitors, so there's nothing in it for the Commodore to leak or anything like that. So what I found was everyone basically said the first thing you should do, even if you're not planning on doing anything at all other than maybe giving your system a clean, basically if you own an original Xbox, you should open up and remove the clock capacitor because it's prone to fail. There's lots of articles and stuff on this, and there's videos showing you how to do this, but I came across it and just thought that if anyone else is out there in the same boat as me and they have an Xbox up in their attic, that they might want to do the same thing before it's too late and you maybe lose all of your saves. So what does the clock capacitor look like? This is the clock capacitor here. This is what it should look like, at least nice and clean, and this is what it shouldn't look like. So what happens is it leaks, fails probably at the bottom actually. Sometimes what they can do is they kind of bulge, and I wouldn't worry too much about the other capacitors. It's all to do with the quality of the capacitor. Some are fine, but what I've heard is that this one fails. And there's another one that's just failed. So there's countless examples online. If you just type in Xbox clock capacitor, and you'll find that lots of people are having the same problem. So it's more of a preventative step. If you're worried about damaging your board by removing it or anything like that, you could probably just open up to see how yours is looking. If it looks like it's bulging a little bit, or if it looks like there's any kind of discoloration around the board, you should probably just rip out. Just to show you guys, this is the one I ripped out of mine. This is it to scale. It's a little deceiving if you look at these photos. I think these photos must have just been taken really up close or something. But whenever I actually ripped mine out, it was kind of tiny. And I'll link a video in the description where there's basically two methods of removing this thing. You can either remove your entire board and then desolder the back of the legs and then take out that way. Or the other method is just to wiggle it back and forward and rip it out. I was worried that if I soldered my board, I would end up burning the motherboard too much or something. I wouldn't be really that confident at soldering, so I just didn't want to take the risk and do that. So I kind of bent mine off, and whenever I did that, it did actually leak as I was bending it. Now it's probably because I was bending it back and forward. But like I just like had a little bit of tissue and just like cleaned up just the general area. Like not a lot of stuff came out, but I can imagine if you left it for long and the whole thing leaked all over your board, it'd be bad news. So that's my that was the first step in what I did whenever I set my Xbox up. The other thing to note, this is a little guide. It says in the bottom here, so I've just seen this in another YouTube video. It's not 100% accurate, but this is a rough guide on whether or not you should remove it. So basically, if you have a 1.6 onwards, if that's your version, then you don't need to remove your capacitor, because they've sort of figured out that I guess they adapted it or changed it in some way. A friend of mine who's also going to be speedrunning, he checked his, and his was like 2005, and he opened up his board to clean it, because they get really dusty, and that's another thing. You should probably clean your Xbox, especially if it's been in the attic for 10 years. But his version was 2005, and his board looked entirely different, and he didn't have the capacitor in the same place. So if yours is 2005, it should be fine. So those are some images. But yeah, that's what I will say. Just make sure you remove that capacitor. So the next issue I was worried about was memory. So if I go into my Xbox's memory, there are some saves on the Xbox that I really wanted to keep. So obviously at the minute, if you guys have been watching my channel, I've been playing Battlefield on the Xbox 360, but I'm not really happy about it's very dark. That I've noticed, like, I mean, I always knew this about the 360 version, but the original Xbox version is so much brighter, and it looks just so much more fun to play. And I've had a couple of just testing out, and I actually enjoy it so much more on the original Xbox. Now I could play the PlayStation 2 version, but then I'd have to use the PlayStation 2 controller, and I'm finding this controller is like really I find it so much easier to play with. And I'm having fun going back and playing. It's been so long since I've actually got my hands on it. But one of the things about Battlefield speedrunning in particular, now I want to back up a lot of my saves, but in Battlefield, the more you do in the campaign, the more stuff you unlock, the more weapons you unlock, the more abilities you get and stuff like that. So it is a real advantage to have like a fully ranked up profile, and it takes a bit of grinding to get there. So the last thing I want to happen is for me to play this and then my hard drive fails, bearing in mind that like most places you talk to, or most, like if you Google how long does a hard drive last, people generally say like 3 or 4 years. My Xbox is now nearly pushing, like it's nearly going on to 20 years old. I think mine was like I think it's mine like 2001, 2002 or something, so it's getting close to 20 years old, so I don't know how much longer my hard drive's going to last. And so that's a real concern for me. And the other thing is it does have, in my save states here, actually, I also got the Warsome Booster Pack. Now, I think this was a couple of downloadable maps that came free. I can't remember off the top of my head what those maps were. I think one of them must be hidden, but there was like, when I first got the game, there was a free DLC with some free maps. Like, that's something you don't see anymore. But there it is right there. It took up quite a few blocks actually, and it was downloaded in 2006 at 11 o'clock at night. So yeah, January. It was I think, I can't even remember. That's interesting to me, because those kind of things, like, I have no idea. If someone said, when did you first start playing Battlefield, and that's probably as accurate as I'll ever get to a date where I started playing it, because I would have downloaded the maps more or less the first night I played it online, and like I said, the Xbox has been up in the attic for so long that I wanted to check things like this just to see what times these things were played and stuff. Obviously that date there's wrong, it's like 2001, but that's because that's one thing I should mention. When you take your clock capacitor out of your Xbox, every time you turn your Xbox back on, you'll have to put in the date if you really want to. So that's just something to be mindful of. So now, because my save was like 2001, but it's just because my clock doesn't work anymore. But yeah, it's nice to see some of these saves. Also, I have things like that I wanted to back up. Some of these things, there's some maps for Halo as well. Bonus map pack, map-tacular pack, kill-tacular pack. Some of my Hitman saves, maybe I want to go back and play that at some point. Metal Gear Solid Substance, like I really want to go back and play that at some point because I unlocked so many of the VR missions, and I want to go back and see what exactly I did and didn't do, because I just have all these memories of these games, but I never really remember how much I actually completed of them and stuff. But what's more important in some ways than the actual saves is the data, like here's some player data. So for example, there's a profile of Neil. So that was like a friend of mine way back in the day. We played a lot of Time Splitters, and so that's his stats. Like it's like I think Perfect Dark did this as well, where it saved all of your kills and deaths and stuff like that. So there's my account Jim, so I could go back and just see how many kills I got in the campaign, stuff like that. There's my friend Mo, and I'm not sure who Snake was. But also I used to take my Xbox to a friend's house and play Time Splitter as well. He had it for the GameCube, I had it for the Xbox, and he made a little profile on there called Rick O'Shea. And then also Time Splitters has a map editor, so I've actually made a few maps. There's like, and actually probably some of these maybe even are downloaded. So there's like Halo Combat Evolve. So I don't think I would have personally done that. I think I probably would have went online and downloaded that. 007 Facility, I remember downloading that one. There's just some more of my friends that a few accounts they have. So again, it's just interesting who I can. For me personally, like this won't be interesting to anyone else, some of this stuff. But like, so there's a map called Base. Like I made a map in there, so I wouldn't mind going back and seeing that. There's another account. There's my other account, so I'd like to go and just have a look at some of my stats. Same thing for Tony Hawk Underground. There's maybe some levels in there, and then also soundtracks. And my actual Xbox Live accounts now, they won't really make much sense now. Like I don't really need them. But the cool thing about the Xbox was that you could save your music onto it, and a lot of this music I actually don't own anymore on disc, and like some of them, like I have basically a lot of like rap and then indie stuff on here. Like that's what I was mostly listening to back then. Just in case you're wondering, Outcesticide, I know it sounds a bit weird, that's actually like a Nirvana like B-sides and stuff like that. But that Obi Trice, so like, I just remember seeing that and thinking like I never owned that CD, but what happened back in the day was a friend would have bought a new album and he would have like came down to your house, he would have put it in the CD player and then like played it and everyone would listen to it and stuff like that. But generally I would have like, what we would have done is we shared CDs and then put it in our Xboxes and burned it onto the Xbox, so that you can actually listen to it in some games like Burnout, Tony Hawk's, Forza. Like there was lots of games that had like customized soundtracks. And actually one of the games I used to play a lot was what was it called? Oh yeah, Conflict, the Conflict series, Conflict Vietnam, Conflict Desert Storm. You could play that co-op and listen to your soundtracks. That was so much fun to do that. And so there's lots of like random little, there's like Pheromone. I was actually listening to him today. Like there's some rap stuff and like it's always good to go back and listen to this stuff. But I don't actually own any of this in any other format. I think a lot of my CDs are kind of lost now and stuff. And there's lots of random compilations, just like random rap compilations and stuff that I would listen to that I just like to go back and listen to again. And so the big worry then is the hard drive failing. So what couple of steps I've taken to try and combat this is, the first is I've bought this memory card. Unfortunately it doesn't seem like there's any like third party or aftermarket memory cards available. Like if I want to get a memory card for my GameCube, it's like £1 because it's like a knockoff, but it works perfectly fine, and it's super cheap. But for some reason, like the original Xbox was like never cracked properly. There's no way of like properly emulating it, and I've also found that getting third party things that have been made like recently. Like sometimes you'll get stuff that's made recently that'll be compatible with older systems, and Xbox just doesn't. I don't know if it just doesn't have the market or what it is, but it's really hard to find like aftermarket things. So I think this is like, I think this came out at the time, so it was like £10. And to be honest, there wasn't even much difference. If you buy a loose memory card, it was like £8 or £9. So it's just like, might as well buy one that's in the pack, so I know that at least it has some chance of still working okay. So that's step one, is I'm going to back up a lot of my, before I do like serious gaming, I'm going to back up as much as I possibly can fit into this little card. I don't know how much it holds. I heard it was like 500 blocks, but I'll have to open up after this video and find out. But I plan on hopefully at least I can save copy some of my accounts, possibly some of my levels, and just as much of my old saves as I possibly can. The other steps, so I'm a paranoid guy, so I don't leave anything in chance, and I like to try and back up as much as possible. So once I've backed up my memory card, what I might actually do is back up the hard drive. You can do this, but you have to soft mod your Xbox. And basically all I needed to buy was like this little cable here. Oh, my screen's kind of going all funny. Oh, my capture card's kind of messed up. This little cable is basically just like female USB to control port, and there's a video online that all you need to do is just like put some software under a USB, put this into your Xbox, and actually through a random exploit you actually need, because I was like wondering how do they get this stuff to actually run, and you actually need one of 4 games. And it turns out that recently I bought like a whole, like coincidentally, like I just seen a bunch of like cheap Xbox games, and this Agent Under Fire is the one that when I was watching the video I was just like, hopefully I have some of these games. And there's an exploit in this where all you do is you put the USB into your Xbox and then load up your game, and then act as if you're going to load a level or load up a save, but really you're loading a hack onto your Xbox, and that then gives you access to back up your hard drive, which is what I hope to do. I'd like to just back the entire hard drive up, because I mean there's things on there like the Time Splitters maps that I downloaded, like they're like user maps, possibly even the Battlefield DLC maps, and even the Halo DLC maps. Like there's potential that some of that information might be usable in the future, and it's no good that if these Xboxes start dying, that we'll not have access to them anymore. So it's kind of a reason to back them up. Just I actually thought I'd cycle through some of these, because like I bought these really cheap. I actually got another copy of Battlefield, so I was only like 50p. Rainbow Six, I remember, can't quite get the camera, remember having fond memories of playing that. Medal of Honor, again 50p. Call of Duty, Conflict Vietnam, this I really enjoyed this, and this is the one with the customized soundtracks. If you can check the back of the box for some of this stuff. I can't, if I can get the camera to focus. In the corner there's 4 little boxes. One of them says widescreen, and below that it says custom soundtracks. I remember whenever I was going into like a game store back in the day, I had a GameCube and I had a Xbox, and what I would do is I'd look at the back of the box, and if it said, I'd generally buy for the Xbox if I had it, because it had like a bigger hard drive to save to, but there was always the chance that it would play custom soundtracks, and I was always look at the back of the box and see if it would say that. The other 2 games I picked up recently, Hitman 2 and Hitman Contracts. Again, really cheap. I'm surprised how cheap, although this was before like a lot of these games were being made backward compatible. It was probably like, could have been as much as like 4 or 5 months ago, so maybe there wasn't as many as them. In fact, I don't even know if there's many of them are actually backward compatible, but like because the Xbox you can't emulate it, I always thought that would increase the value of games, because you can't emulate it on the PC, but then I guess you can emulate PC PS2 versions of the game, so maybe people just do that. But anyway, that's beside the point. So yeah, that's basically what I plan to do, is back up as much as possible as I can, and I'm planning on streaming some Battlefield speedruns really soon. Hopefully Fridays, with a friend of mine called Tween Swag, but he's also lead chariot. So I'll leave links to his channel in the description of this video. But basically what we plan to do is, once we get all the kinks worked out and stuff like that, but we plan to stream one after another. So he's gonna stream for a couple of hours on a couple of Battlefield levels, and then as soon as he goes off, I'll start up and take over for a couple more hours, and then we're just going to try and set some times on the leaderboards, and just have some fun replaying Battlefield and stuff like that. So yeah, I'll leave links in the description for his Twitch channel, and you can go and subscribe to him, because it'd be a good idea if you want to see my streams. You might as well watch his first, and then that'll lead on to mine as well. So yeah, thanks for watching this video. If you guys have any tips, I just could not find a good way to properly back up saves, and to be honest, like, the memory card's good for a fallback, and I'm definitely going to just, probably as soon as I finish this video, I'm going to like back up some of my saves, but I just couldn't find a good way of actually preserving this this data really. So if any of you guys have any tips on playing the Xbox in 2019, because I'm kind of I'm all new to it again, so maybe you could leave some comments. And yeah, thanks for watching this video, and keep an eye on my channel for the streams that I'm going to be doing soon. Thanks for watching.